You're listening to the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. We all have leadership within us, and once we understand how to challenge perceived limitations, we're able to influence those we're leading. Josh is a leadership coach, trainer, and speaker. He's also a veteran of the United States Air Force with over 20 years of leadership experience. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's Josh in today's episode.
Welcome to the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. Every episode, we look to transform our leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. And if you would, leave a review. Every review that this podcast has gives all the platforms the ability to reach more people. And as you know, I'm on a mission to reach people and build leaders. Speaking of leaders, today we're joined by an incredible leader, a friend of mine. He's a husband, he's a father, he's an author, a speaker, a catalyst, a military leadership consultant, and an account executive. He wears a lot of hats. Our guest today is Randall Haug. Randall, thanks for joining us.
Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here, and I'm clicking subscribe right now.
Love it.
And
love it.
Everybody else that knows me, I am ordering to click subscribe right now.
Follow the direction. There you go.
Everybody that sees this podcast in the corner of whatever they're watching right now, I want you to go click it, and I want you to click subscribe.
Man, Randall, thanks. I'm not even paying this guy to do this. Randall, I appreciate you. Hey, and you guys know if someone gives you an order, I mean, especially a guy like Randall, I feel like you got to follow that order, right?
Well, I say tread carefully. Tread carefully.
There you go. Well, man, Randall, thanks for being here. I'm excited to introduce you to the audience. I know the audience is going to be pumped to hear your story, the impact that you're making, and really how you're doing it. But if you would, go ahead and take a moment to share with the audience who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So my name is Randall Haug. I am a husband, a father, all those titles that Josh just gave us. And I'm an account executive for Lamar Advertising. So Lamar Advertising is the largest out-of-home media provider in North America. And what I'm essentially getting at is billboards. So any sort of marketing that you do, there's typically 8 to 10 channels that you could go. We can actually help you make those bigger, right? Literally and metaphorically. We want to get your message out there. And so I encourage you to go to lamar.com and check our website out. I work out of the Little Rock office, but great company, great integrity standards and whatnot. But I am also an author, a dad. I've got 2 wonderful kids. I have a loving wife. You could actually see them behind me, and they are what a lot of people call their why, right? Why do you get up in the morning? What gets you out of bed, and just that gets that dog in you to get what you got to get done each day? That they're mine. And one of the coolest things that I've ever done is publish a book. So this is my first one right here. And Josh, I've got some really unique and cool things to share with you in this book. And actually, well, we could talk about it a little bit later, but there's a little Easter egg in here. My second one comes out this year, and the title of it is in this one.
Very good.
And so I'm not going to tell you what the name of it is. You got to buy it. You got to know it, or you got to shoot me a message or visit my website, and let's connect and let's talk about it, because it's not about me. It's about you.
There you go. And Randall, you just shared the title of your book. It's not about me. For those listening, Randall referenced, he has some pictures of his family behind him. Beautiful family, by the way, Randall. I would encourage you to go into the YouTube channel, The Bearded Leader. You can find the YouTube channel, The Bearded Leader, and you can find this podcast episode and many more on my channel. And you also held up your book rather. And so the audience can see your book in hand. It's not about me. So Randall, let's begin by talking about why the title. What is it about? It's not about you. It's not about me, right? What is it about? So tell us about your book.
So Josh, the the title of the book is It's Not About Me, 7 Key Principles for the Heart of Corporate America. I was an account executive for a Fortune 500 company, great company. And what I noticed a lot of the time, whether I was talking about the company I was working with or other companies I went and visited with, customers that I managed, contacts that I visited with, and they contacted me about issues they were having or things that were going right, developing my team. What I realized was there was a giant disconnect. There was a giant disconnect in the fact that people want different things. And if you try to develop somebody with the idea that, and I'm just going to use this as an example, that money is the key driver for everybody, I am sorry to say that is incorrect. Money's fine. You make good money. I made good money. Real quick, by the way, Josh, I got to say thank you so much for your service. I mean, my grandpa was in the Air Force. My mom actually was born on an Air Force, like a hospital on an Air Force base. And I am colorblind as I will get out. And I didn't get the opportunity to serve, but this is my way. Like, this book is my way to serve those that have served us for years and give us the land, the home of the free and the land of the brave. And so thank you so much for what you did for our country.
Thank you, Randall. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. But to get back to what we were talking about, this book is 7 Key Principles for the Heart of Corporate America. And just to give you an idea, I interviewed 7 highly successful people. And I say highly because success is determined by the individual. I believe that wholeheartedly. I've made good money. But if I compared W-2s with somebody that I interviewed, mine would be less. But I know how much money that I need to be happy. And I know how much money some other people need to be happy because they've told me. And where I've seen some successes, helping those people make as much money as they can because that's what their motivator was, right? I mean, I've interviewed people and I've worked with people that their goal was to make $50,000 a year. That was their goal. And I was able to help them do that by serving them, right? This is a servant leadership book. By serving them and taking the narrative off of me. It's not, right? People get stuck in, well, I want to help take care of you. I want to do that, but I got to make sure it's good for me first. Okay. I can think of one reason that you could say that. Only one. It would be put your seatbelt on when you're driving. Right? That is a law and that is mandated. And I will never tell anybody else anything differently. Put your seatbelt on. Right? There are some cars that we drive that there are 2 straps that go over you for seatbelts. And those are really fast cars that Randall probably shouldn't be driving. And I don't for that reason. So,
well, Randall, let me ask you this, because you mentioned servant leadership. And for a lot of our listeners, that might be a new term for them. So if I were to ask you, what does servant leadership mean to you and how do you apply servant leadership in your life? What would you say to that?
I would say servant leadership means forget about what's good for Randall for a minute. I'm going to help you, whether it has any monetary value to me. I'm going to help you accomplish your goals to the best of my ability without negatively impacting myself. People talk about they would give you their last dollar. They would give you the shirt off of their back to help you if it meant that shirt meant more. And that's what it means to me. However, and you know this just as well as I do, once you start to help somebody, a lot of the times you can pick up on whether what you're helping them do is in the best interest of just them or the best interest of all the parties involved, right? And I'll give you an example. I worked for a company that part of my job was to manage accounts, right? Part of my job was to go manage the products and services that we provided for accounts. And one of my mentors actually taught me this. He said, sometimes Randall, you got to take a short-term loss to get a long-term gain. And I said, I think I understand what that means, but can you explain to me? He said, sometimes you may have to lose a product that you're selling them on because it's going to help them in the short term. And when you take that mindset, when you take off the hat for what's good for Randall and put on the hat for what's good for the customer, a lot of the time they're going to stay with you forever. Mm-hmm. Right? Lead with that passion and empathy in your heart before you lead with holding somebody to a contract.
I love hearing you share this, Randall, because you're also, to me, what I'm thinking about servant leadership and the way you're describing it, what I'm hearing you say is that when you focus on serving those around you, you're focusing on influencing those around you. The beautiful thing about servant leadership is everyone gets better. As Craig Rochelle would say, when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And it's true with servant leadership because you are now pouring into and investing, which I want to hang on that word for a second here in a bit. You're investing in those around you, and literally everyone is getting better. And what happens is when you start investing in those around you in the way that you're describing, it's no longer about you, which again, your title of your book is It's Not About Me. You're focused on growing and developing other people. And in doing so, you are avoiding the micromanagement style that a lot of people are inadvertently accustomed to. They don't even realize it. And you are now leading, growing, developing, influencing people in a tremendous way. And I want to go back to what you just shared about, what you described is really an investment. You're taking one step back to take many steps forward. And that's where an investment is. I mean, an investment is truly giving of yourself to some degree and eventually reaping the benefits. But the beautiful thing is everyone around you is reaping those benefits tenfold because of the way that you serve them through a servant leadership style.
Absolutely. And I honestly couldn't have said that better myself. You've heard the term, every 10,000 step journey starts with the first step. Mm. But what a lot of people don't talk about in that is sometimes you take 10 steps forward and then you take a couple steps back and then you take 10 more steps forward, right? People talk about the chart. Like some people are going to learn what they're going to learn from our video, and some people are going to learn what they're going to learn from this book. Some people are also visual learners, right? So in my second book, I have several different graphs where I kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. But a lot of people think that success is straight up. The reality is success is up and a little bit down, up and a little bit down. The roller coaster effect,
sure,
if you will. There's peaks and valleys in that. But it's not just level. It's up and down, because when we have that mindset of it's not about me, you can turn that around and you can learn from somebody that you're teaching. They can teach you something too. Another one of my mentors, who is actually in this book, he's in chapter 5. The last lesson that he taught me when he called me to talk about how excited he was about this was the mentor and the mentee relationship can always be flip-flopped. Mm. He said the mentor can always become the mentee at any moment if you believe, if you have the right mindset. And I'm talking about that belief sign that you had back there. That sign right there may change the entire trajectory of one of these calls that you're doing. It did for me, right? I wake up every day believing that I have some good to give, but I might not always have the right tools to give them. Mm. But that's why I've got to turn around. I've got to take a step back and figure out what tools I got to use to believe I can do this, help other people believe that I can do this for them, and then help other people believe that they can do it as well.
And what's amazing, Randall, is all it takes is one person. For some of us, all it takes is one person to say those 4 simple words: I believe in you. I believe in you. When someone shares that with you, all of a sudden that can do a world of wonder for you and your ability and in terms of moving the needle forward and moving that trajectory, that forward trajectory that you need to go. All you need is one little push, one person to be able to say, hey, look, you know what? I believe in you. There's enough There's so many of us who we have our own perspective, and it's not shared with anyone. I mean, we are truly one of one in the entire world. We all have our own individual perspective, which allows us the ability to be influential to those around us. And if we can influence those around us, we can affect change. And when you have one person saying, hey, you know what, Randall, I believe in you. You are a change agent. And now you do have the ability to wake up and be that dog that you talked about and said, you know what, I believe I have a lot to give. I may not know all the tools I may not have or know all the tools to give it. Let me ask you this. I'm gonna flip it back to you, Randall, and ask the question of, what advice would you give to someone who know, like, they believe in themselves, they have that belief that you're talking about, but they don't know where to find the tools. They don't know how to use the tools. They might even be having right in front of their eyes, but they don't know it. What advice would you give to someone in relation to getting those tools and utilizing those tools?
Ask as many questions as you possibly can. Ask questions. And I talk about that in my book, but you actually said a couple things that I wanted to kind of jump on. You said change agent, and then you said sometimes all it takes is one person to say they believe. You've got a book coming out. You have a book that came out this year. You also, I know you because we are friends. You have other books that are going to come out in the future. I know that.
Yeah.
Who did the forward for your first book?
Damon West.
Do you know how this book came to be? Like my book?
Through Damon?
The last day that I was living in Lawton, Oklahoma, I got a phone call from a coworker of mine that I didn't get to say goodbye to. And he said, hey, someone wants to talk to you. And it was Damon West on the phone. And I was like, are you kidding me? And he was like, Randall, I heard that you are a coffee bean, essentially. Like, you're a coffee bean. And man, it hasn't been too late, I'd love to meet you. And I drove out, and my coworker's name was Jason. I drove out to the football fields, and it was August in Southwest Oklahoma. It was like 105 degrees outside. And Damon had just got done speaking to he's a military leadership consultant as well. He just got done speaking to a branch of the military on Fort Sill in Lawton, Oklahoma. And he was so nice. We actually took a picture together, and I posted it on my LinkedIn account. That led to John Gordon sending me a DM on there. It was someone that worked for John Gordon Companies, Alex Demchek, which you know how just as well as I do. Conversations lead to conversations, to Randall getting a book contract with Streamline Books out of Kansas City, Missouri, by the way, if anybody's wondering, which led to where we are right now. I believe everything happens for a reason. And the reason I say all of that is because I put in here, ask leading questions. Yeah. Ask the questions that will lead you to the answer that you want. However, it may not be the answer that you want to hear. It may be the answer that you need to hear, but that's just going to lead you down the path of more questions.
And for those listening, and I want to jump in real quick, Randall, for those listening. So the reason we're bringing up Damon to begin with is because Damon is the author of a couple books, among many, but one of which is called The Change Agent, which is what you referenced, and also The Coffee Bean, which is a phenomenal story about being able to affect change. So if I were going to put it back on you, Randall, what advice would you give to companies, to people, to team leaders who are struggling with communication and struggling with this, like expand a little bit more on the idea of the apologies and the lack of communication, the breakdown of communication. Talk more about that, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thought that came to my mind, and this will resonate with you a lot, I think. Ultimately, it's a leader's responsibility to make sure a team's effectiveness is good. A team's goal is that. Ultimately, it is a leader's responsibility. Like, say whatever you want about, well, my team didn't show up to work. Okay, you hired them most likely. And or you are managing them to this day. It is your responsibility to train them to be better. Like, well, it doesn't matter what you, like, in that moment, it doesn't matter. To answer your question, get everybody in a room and everybody start asking questions and take every single person's answer and hold it to the highest level that you can hold it. Because at the end of the day, right, when things are hard, it is your responsibility to get in the trenches with your team and make sure, right? What's the difference between a manager and a leader? A manager will tell you what to do. A leader will tell you what to do and then get in there and show you how to do it, right? You can delegate. Anybody can delegate all day long, but if you're not delegating effectively, that ties back into communication, right? If you're not delegating effectively, you're making people feel a certain way that doesn't allow them to operate at their peak, right? One of my goals was, and I've had 10 people report to me, and I've had 30 directly and indirectly report to me. Okay. The difference, like what I've realized was the same. Everybody wanted to feel valued. Everybody wanted to feel like they had a voice, whether that voice was speaking out loud, not speaking in a meeting and texting me after, or texting in a group message, sending an email, replying all. It's all the same. Everybody wants to feel valued. And how you make that person feel valued is the difference. So, and I hope that answers your question, but if that was me, if I was struggling with the culture in my workplace, if I was struggling to get things accomplished, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit down with my team. And this is where we get into the whole change the people or change the people, right? I don't believe in, looking at somebody's track record on a piece of paper and making a decision based on that before getting to know the person, right? So I'm gonna sit down with my team and I'm gonna say, here are our goals, right? Because a lot of the time, our goals are set by, our boss, the CEO of the company, right? And think about it personally, right? You're married, you and your wife are co-CEOs of your household, right? We all have goals. A lot of times we don't get to decide what those goals are. So the reality is we have to hit XYZ goal. We have to hit it. And I'm going to sit down with my team and I'm going to say, how do y'all think we can hit it? And if the first thing that I hear come out of their mouth is, there's no way that we can hit that, I'm going to say, that's not true. And right there, that's the mindset that we cannot have to hit our goals. It goes back to believe, that sign behind you. If you truly believe in what you're selling, what the team that you're leading, the podcast that you're following, which I am a big believer of this. If you truly believe in it, that's 50% of it. You're halfway there.
Yeah, and I like what you're sharing, Randall. I think it goes back to what you shared earlier about asking questions, because if someone immediately says, well, we can't do this, as a leader, your opportunity then is to ask questions. Hey, Randall, help me understand why you think that we can't hit this goal. And then we can kind of reverse engineer the process to get to that goal. So let's look at the steps that we could take and help them believe that we actually can do this. When we start walking through this and talking through this, we actually can hit these goals. Randall, you mentioned your website earlier at the beginning of this episode. Go ahead and share your website. Share with the audience where they can find you, how they can book you as a speaker, where they can find your book, It's Not About Me. Give us all the details about where they can find you.
Yeah. So my website is randallhaug.com. And it has a link to buy this book on Amazon. It has a link to send me an email. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. I have a few people that are helping me with some other marketing on Instagram and some other different places. And that's where, right, to kind of tie into what you're talking about, you got to have a team, right? Yeah. You very rarely is somebody a self-made XYZ accomplished person. Right. Very rarely. And you can find my book on Amazon. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can add me on Facebook. You can do, it doesn't matter to me how you communicate. You can write me a letter. You could call me on the phone. You could send me a text. You can do any of those things. The last few are ones that I prefer for people I've met in person and I know. right? But that's what this is about. It's not about me. Let's get connected. Let's have a cup of coffee. You and I connected in a very similar way. I get up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. every single day. And I drink coffee and I think about what I've got to accomplish and or what I've got to do today to set myself up for success. Saturdays, I don't set an alarm. A lot of times I wake up at a certain time. I mean, you were in the military. You had alarms set for how long to be up at a certain amount of time. And I mean, there is truth to that, right? There's truth to getting up early. Winning early helps you win later.
True.
Right? I don't know what the future holds, but I know that every morning, and I'm teaching my kids this, every morning, if I get up and I make my bed, I've accomplished the first task of the day, and the day can only go upward from there.
Yeah.
Right?
There
is a former, and I want to say that he's retired now, a former commander. He actually wrote a book called Turn the Ship Around. And one of the keynotes that he gave was, he gave a keynote for a college graduation. And what he always said, the best advice that he can give is every morning, get up and make your bed. Because no matter how the day goes, you accomplish one task in the day.
Yeah.
Right? We're all going to have days that absolutely do not go the way that we want them to. But at the end of the day, when we get back in bed, we can get back into that mess, or we can get back into something that we start fresh and create a new day, fresh day every single day. That was terrible.
No, that's good. Oh,
chop that.
Oh, okay.
No. Start your day off making your bed. That way, every single day, you can accomplish the first task of the day.
Yeah, love that. I mean, you're getting a win. You're stacking the wins. It sounds like any line of communication is open for you, Randall. I'm going to send you a carrier pigeon named Fred. He's very reliable. So you mentioned text, phone call, email. I got a carrier pigeon, so we're going to use him to contact you. Randall, thanks so much for being on the podcast. I do want to reiterate, your website is randallhaug.com. That's Haug. So randallhaug.com. Randall,
yes,
man,
sir.
Thanks again for being on the podcast.
Oh, Josh, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to the opportunity to do it again.
Absolutely.
And for all of you that didn't click subscribe, you can still click that subscribe button right there.
There you go. I appreciate you, Randall. And thank you for tuning into the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. Every episode, I try to bring you new ideas, new insights, new information regarding all things leadership. So whether it's guests like Randall or topics we can all relate to, if you enjoy this podcast, I do think you'll enjoy my new book called Leading a Legacy, just released a couple months ago. And it is, again, how to live today to make an impact for tomorrow. What are we doing today to make an impact for tomorrow? Because the legacy that we lead determines the legacy that we leave. So as I sign off, I want to leave you with one more request and ask that you go and head on over to my website, www.limitlessleadership.co, or head on over to Amazon to purchase a copy of Leading a Legacy today. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.